Hello and welcome back to Does It Go Hard, the show where I review movies, video games, and more. Today, I have another double feature review for you guys. This time, I'm gonna be reviewing The Descent and, what's it called? Hellraiser, the 2022 version. I was really having a hard time trying to find any movies that I could review for the month of October, and I just started to take suggestions because I was very undecisive of what I wanted to review this month, so I ended up reviewing The Descent and Hellraiser, the new one, because those were suggested by friends and family, so I was like, okay, I'll just review these two, because I was not going to review Halloween Ends, because I'm not going to go watch that in the theaters, and I'm not paying for Peacock, so... But forget all the chit-chatting, let's just get into the reviews, and I'll be starting by reviewing The Descent from 2007. This film has a pretty basic story, which is just a group of 6 women that go into these caves and they discover a bunch of creepy ass people or whatever, like monsters, cannibals, I don't know what you want to call them. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the basic story for this movie. I've actually seen this movie before, but it was like a while back, a couple of years ago, and I've completely forgotten everything about it by this point. So rewatching it was actually kind of a good idea. While I like the movie, don't get me wrong, I think the movie is good, but it also falls into some of the things that I hate in horror movies. First of all, I want to talk about the casting of the film. Cast is actually pretty good in terms of the acting. Everybody does a good to decent job. There's maybe like one girl in the entire group that was a little bit overacting a bit too much for my taste, but for the most part, these girls actually did a pretty good job with the material that they were given to act with. Most of their performances felt real and felt genuine. I thought the acting overall was pretty good. When the movie actually gets into the meat of things, you know, the horror and the suspense, it's actually very effective for the most part. I would say that again, it has a few places where it kind of falters, but that kind of goes into my negatives. For the most part, I think the horror does work well. It has tension, there's build up to things, there's a couple of jump scares here and there, but for the most part, I think the horror is very well choreographed and it's very well managed here, where it doesn't feel cheesy or stupid. It's actually really effective for the most part. Cinematography and direction was pretty decent. I don't think it's incredible because it does take inspiration from things like the Blair Witch Project, but for the most part, I thought it was effective when it was required for the horror scenes and when stuff started to get really stressful. So it was definitely effective for what the film was trying to convey to the audience, but it's just not super inventive or like, oh my god, this is some new type of directing. It's not really. But now I'm gonna get into my complaints, which is that the film does get predictable after a while. Mostly in the second half. The first half of the movie is very unpredictable. You don't know where things are going, you don't know what's gonna happen to these girls, so you are on the edge of your seat during that first half. But then the second half kind of hits, and then you're like, okay, now I can see kinda where things are going, so it just kind of pulls me out of the thing where I'm like, before, I was very invested in these characters, and I really was rooting for them to kind of get out of here, especially with these f***ing creepos in these f***ing caves. But then, it becomes predictable, and you can kind of see where things are going from that point on, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion. The script is very flawed. I don't think it's terrible. It's definitely serviceable for what the film was trying to convey, but at the same time, it was also very lazy at times. The dialogue was not very strong for the most part, and again, by the end, the script also falters by the halfway point because the movie becomes predictable. And like I said, the movie does take a lot of inspiration from films like the Blair Witch Project. There's some scenes even that almost feel like they are pulled right out of the Blair Witch Project. We were doing so good on trying to, at least trying to be our own thing, and then the movie starts kind of repeating or taking things from other movies, blatantly taking things from other movies. By the end, I would say it's a pretty low goes raw. I think it's still a pretty good movie. I think if you watch it for Halloween, you'll definitely enjoy it. But for me personally, it just has a lot of flaws where I can't give it a decent goes raw or a high goes raw or even a goes hard. A low goes raw is going to have to be the rating for this film. Now I'll be reviewing Hellraiser 2022. I'm gonna keep it real short for this one because let me just say right out the bat, this film is Hellraiser. This is Hellraiser from top to bottom. There's nothing in this film that feels really drastically different from any other Hellraiser movie, at least the original one, and even a little bit of the second one. It feels like a Hellraiser movie. I think that's actually really cool. I think that's the biggest positive of the film, which is that this does not try to take away anything that makes Hellraiser special. It's creepy, it's violently gory, and it's also incredibly horny. Ooh, really, really horny. And that's not to say that the movie doesn't have its own thing going on. It does, and it really works for the film. And from the directing and the writing, it's incredible. The human characters, you know, the teen characters that you're always rooting for them to die, you actually kind of care for them, which is really weird for Hellraiser or really any horror movie nowadays. The movie is really effective with its violence, with its goriness, with its horror. I'm impressed with how this movie really was able to capture essence of Hellraiser in an incredible way, while also still trying to innovate it and update it for a little bit. Now, I will say that the third act kind of falters a little bit, not a huge fall, but from the first act and second half, the movie is incredible. It's really effective, it's amazing. But then that third act kind of comes in, it's like, it's a little bit janky with its writing, decisions the characters make, they're kind of stupid at times. And it does kind of end in a way where there could be another one, or there could be more Hellraiser movies. At the same time, this movie does work as its own thing. Like, it works as a solo film. Like, it's not like, oh, it cock teases you for a sequel. No, the movie works just on its own, and they just kind of tease you with the possibility of maybe being more in the future. Definitely, I would give the movie a high ghost raw, in my opinion. I thought the movie was really effective. It was gory, it was violent, it was spooky, it was creepy as shit, and the actress that they got to play the Pinhead character, I thought she did an amazing job with the role. Now, she's not my favorite Pinhead, that's gonna have to go to the original Pinhead from the original film. I thought she did a really good job with her own thing in this film. People should definitely watch this on Halloween. Definitely give it a watch. It's on Hulu if you're wondering where you can watch it. But what did you think of The Descent and Hellraiser 2022? Did you like the movies? Did you hate them? Or did you just kind of feel indifferent to both films? Leave it down in the comments. I really want to know what you thought about them. But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and like always, good day, good night, and stay safe.